why don't we go through the changes that you were proposing? And then we can take it from there. I think we've given this about, we appear to have given it about 20 minutes.
Okay.
So if you could just let us know what changes you're proposing.
I'll be really brief and then I'll let
Okay.
Paul talk, because I think I had showed you the proposed changes to the driveway at the last hearing, and I think my feeling was everyone thought that was a pretty good change in terms of the location where the driveway used to go up in here.
Right.
And so we moved that down. So that, you've really seen that change and we've talked about it. Paul has worked on a new approach to mitigate the replanting of the driveway while still maintaining some accessibility. And I believe the feedback we got from the fire department was, there were a couple of options, but they would prefer a through connection in some form or fashion. I would just like to speak to that just for a brief moment. I know one of the options that was flying around in the emails was, instead of having the access drive, installing another hydrant on the Brooks property. But what I would say to that is, I think the fire department prefers this route, and I think from one of the charges out of the special permit is, does the project promotes public safety? And I think this particular connection, in forming a connection from Newton Street through to this private drive, not only benefits Brooks, but it benefits 6 houses in total, because these 3 houses on the private way also have pretty limited access. This drive can be pretty treacherous, so it does give the fire department a second means of access and egress to protect these homes. And there's a home here, a home here, and a home here, as well as the other 2 homes in the flexible subdivision. So the throughway, to the extent that the fire department can utilize that, will protect 6 homes, whereas the one hydrant really only, it helps Brooks, but it doesn't preclude a situation where, an obstruction falls here or here for all 6 homes. So I think the public safety is served by the through connection. That's all I have there.
Let me just say this. The idea that this is going to be reinforced turf, it's going to get plowed on a regular basis in the winter, it's not what's going to happen. And so you might as well just call a spade and say that you're going to pave the entire, you're going to leave that driveway the way it is and have an entire paved loop.
I disagree with that, because, Eric's willing to have, Billy Rowe, who does his maintenance work, actually use a snow blower on that.
It's not going to work. I guarantee you, after 2 or 3 winters, we're going to be back here talking about the fact that the turf doesn't work, that the plows dig it up, it looks like hell in the springtime, and the petition's going to be to pave it over, because that's the logical, rational thing to do. And so for me, the question is whether we want to just bite the bullet and say that we're going to have a loop road or not. The fire department said they would accept a hydrant or, so you're writing standards for the fire department. The fire department said they would accept either or, a hydrant on the driveway or the link. If it's a choice, and this is the fire department's choice, it's not mine. My choice would be to put the hydrant on the driveway and call it a day. Replant the area that was cut down, that was basically clear cut 5 or 6 years ago, and call it a day. That's my position. Mm-hmm. Or alternatively, let's just leave it alone. Why build all that asphalt anyway? There's already an approved special permit that shows the access to both houses. Why change anything? We've been living with it for 5 years. Why change anything? I would accept the hydrant, but I don't believe that you're going to put that plowing that turf is going to result in anything but just a mess, which we're going to have to deal with later.
Yeah, again, I don't think the driveway has to be plowed. It can be maintained in other means.
The fire department requires it to be plowed.
You mean
because
they wouldn't accept
want
a snow
access.
blower?
They want access to that hydrant on the street.
They're required to be cleared, not plowed.
Plowed was the word that I saw in the emails.
Well, I think we'd seek a clarification on whether
Well,
clear is
Look,
acceptable.
the question is whether, it's not both, it's either or. If it's a choice, my preference is to just put a hydrant on the new driveway, plan over the area that was cleared before, and we've satisfied the fire department's requirements. That's what I would do.
Where would the new hydrant go?
Right at the bend in the driveway,
Somewhere in
right
here.
in there.
And where is the current?
Hydrant's down
It's in
here.
the street, so they have to bring a line into the site and put a hydrant on the driveway.
And that one will still stay to serve the other homes?
Yes.
But the hydrant's gonna, that's gonna require at least some degree of cleared opening, probably on the order of 15 feet.
Depends on where it comes off the,
No, wherever the line itself is, needs to be able to be maintained.
well, let's take a look at it. Has anybody looked at it yet?
No, the line is coming down in here, so what would happen is a line would come in
Yeah.
along this line.
Could
So
come
that-
along that line, that's fine.
But then you're saying, go ahead.
I'm saying that whenever you put in an easement or a utility easement or a utility, you can't plant trees over it. You need to be able to maintain that line, so you're gonna maintain something down the order of a 15-foot width over it that's cleared and grassed.
Not necessarily 15 feet.
It's gotta be sufficient to run a vehicle down there so they can maintain it.
Well,
And
they
dig it
can
up.
run the vehicle down the driveway.
Does it have to be plowed?
No, it doesn't have to be plowed, but it has to be an open space.
And it can be left as essentially a no-cut zone. It could be left natural, it could grow up naturally.
But it would need to be maintained and cleared.
Well, you wouldn't be able to put big trees on it, but you'd be able to have lots of other wooded,
Understory.
woodland
You can do
understory
understory.
I have an odd idea here, and that's, what if the part that's very close to the driveway, just for 20 feet, was paved as a turnaround for fire vehicles?
Works for me.
Then the other part could be left to
Right.
become natural. That could be a turnaround for fire engines getting out of there and stuff.
I could live with
And
that.
that may.
Wait, where are you
So,
talking
yeah,
about?
could you-
Right at the bend in the road,
Yeah,
that
right
becomes,
there.
that becomes a hammerhead turnaround
That
for
first
fire
20,
trucks.
and then of
Did the
course.
fire department require a turnaround?
That could be the turf, that could be grassed,
Yeah,
with a reinforced turf right there.
that might be more attractive anyway.
But I thought the issue was they needed access to the water. They
But
needed access to the
if they get the
hydrant.
hydrant into the site and on the driveway, they got the water. It's the whole.
Then what's the turnaround for?
Yeah,
In case they don't, so they're not backing out the entire length of the driveway, they're backing out from the house to the turnaround and then.
So they were never going to turn around at the house? There's not
They
enough
certainly
room.
have the ability to turn around at the house.
Yeah, they've got, because it's a T situation there, so they can turn there.
but the hydrant,
Yeah, that's
good thing I put the cover on there. So the hydrant, for some reason, and I'm not really clear on this, so the deal is they want the hydrant, right? They want the access to the water. I thought the hydrant was up here, but in fact it's down here somewhere?
The hydrant, the
It's at the
existing
end.
It's
hydrant
right
is
here,
there.
okay. And
So
to me,
now-
you just haul the hose in. Why do you have to bring in the trucks?
Not if it's winter conditions, I think that's the point, and this is pretty heavily wooded through here.
Yeah, but if you could still
Sue,
find a way to get the,
Sue,
yeah?
the fire department's requirement is either a hydrant on the driveway
Mhm.
or the link.
They want a road? Did they say
Well,
they wanted a road?
They want it cleared, that the word I saw in the emails was plowed, and they want it connecting the new driveway to the existing opening, for the existing driveway. Now we're talking about whether the reinforced turf could stand up to
Right,
regular
I
plowing.
got that, but,
And my feeling is, if they want the hydrant, if it's either the hydrant or the access, give them the hydrant. Why not?
That seems logical to me.
What if and stranger things have happened. What if there is a fire in one of those two houses over there in the subdivision, and one of those wonderful but old sugar maples that are currently on that driveway come down, that have a trunk this big and take hours to clear? What happens to access for any emergency vehicle, whether it's an ambulance or fire truck, to those houses in that scenario? They can't get to it.
Well, I'll tell you what. One thing I'm not gonna do is agree to a loop road going around the entire edge of the property. I'll accept one of the fire department's requirements, and that is the fire hydrant. The fire department's looked at this, they'll accept it as proposed if you put a hydrant at the bend of the driveway. I'll accept the fire department's assessment.
I guess I've tried to be very quiet and respectful of all of your opinions. When we first presented this, I didn't think it was going to be a very big deal because we were adding 40 new trees to screen the neighbors. I spent time and went around to every single one of our neighbors and asked them individually if they would be supportive of this, because it is an improvement to everybody's home. It is a visual improvement. It is a traffic improvement. That private way now, as we access from the other side, will have dramatically reduced traffic. So the Duffys, the Whitelaws, the Ragavins are all significantly in favor of that. We are adding 40 plus trees of screening to the backyard of the other neighbors, so their view is significantly improved from seeing where things are. From a
You're adding hundreds of feet of paved surface roadway to the site. In exchange for the additional
I'm sorry.
planting.
This is on an interior component, and on a net basis will, I think, be reducing the amount of impermeable surface on a net basis. So we're reducing the amount of impermeable surface. Additionally, from a safety perspective, I cannot believe that it is not in the best interest of the community for us to have some redundancy in case of emergency. Now, what I've tried to do here is be as responsive as I possibly could. We've created a program of landscaping that Kim is supportive of, that when you look at it from any angle, it's not a runway. You know, as we listened to what you said, we came up with a whole landscaping plan that creates a wooded forested area that there is no straight view. We're adding trees over there. I am committing to plow it, snow blow it, whatever needs to happen. And I think I've demonstrated as a member of this community that I do what I say I'm going to do. I put in trees that were taller than you required me to put in when I first built the house. I put in probably 30% more trees than you originally required when I built the house. What I'm asking for is something that everybody's in support of in the community, and does improve the safety on a net basis. So I don't feel like it's a very big ask of you to grant me this small accommodation.
Rob, on the question of net impervious surface, what kind of numbers are we looking at?
Well, right now, because we're leaving the house and this driveway intact for now, it's a reduction of like 400 or 500 square feet of impervious area post compared to pre. So we're actually not adding additional impervious, because we are taking out this chunk, and we're taking out a big chunk of this driveway here that's actually goes behind the existing garage.
And I would say ultimately when we redo whatever that house plan is, it will be a further reduction of the impervious area as well.
So that easterly in the green, your proposal is to have it as basically structural fill.
Structural fill with a vegetative surface.
The vegetated surface.
If you were to walk around it, it would look like wood. It would not look like a straight shot
So-
driveway.
And I think what Al was talking about as well, all right, 5-6 years from now, is it gonna?
I'll
How
redo
do
it.
how do we get it to work?
Well, here's,
That's my responsibility and obligation, and I'm happy to commit to doing it.
here's what I would propose. I'm never gonna agree to paving that link.
I will
Just
never
a
want to
minute.
pay that.
And so, if that doesn't work, or if you sell the property, that hydrant goes in.
Al, you have my personal commitment that I will never pave that component of the property.
But if you sell that property, that hydrant goes in. I don't want the guy after you to say, I can't do it,
Well,
it's too much trouble for me.
I don't think we could force him to, if he sells it.
Why not?
to put the
It's,
hydrant
it's,
in.
it's,
Why
a
not?
well, what I would say is, it's, whenever, if somebody wants to pave that, they're gonna have to come back to you and ask to pave it,
Right.
and you can just say no.
Well,
So-
then we're gonna get all of the arguments that I just heard
How about-
from the civil engineer.
How about if,
And none of the benefits. I don't wanna see that paved.
I agree with you, I don't either.
And so what I'm saying is, I don't wanna come back later and argue about whether it's safe or not to pave that over.
my question would be, or suggestion would be, and I haven't asked Eric about this, so he might smack me in the head, but what if he puts a deed restriction on there, right on the actual deed, as opposed to your special permit that says, you know, you can't have a paved connection out to this private way?
That's of any kind in any location.
Is that acceptable?
Yeah, that's fine with me, I'm not paving.
But this runs with the land.
Right, it would be actually a clause that goes into the deed.
Well, does that then mean I cannot, that a house there, let's say 25 years from now I die and my children want to sell the property and they want to have that be a house, a separate, the way, they want the property to exist the way it exists today, whereas they would get rid of, they want to sell it, and they would get rid of this component, and there'd be a driveway to a house here, and there would be a driveway to a house there, and it would reinstate itself to the exact condition that exists today. I would be totally fine with that. I just don't want.
Well, what Al doesn't want is a loop.
So
what you're saying is to have two separate, discrete driveways.
100%, I would be totally comfortable with that, 100%.
That would be interesting to have
Absolutely
that as a
works for me.
deed on the land, that if it was subdivided, you could have
Yeah.
separate driveways, but no
Never to
loop.
connect with a.
No loop.
Absolutely, positively. That's not my intention. I don't want it to be paved.
Well,
I
fine.
want it to be.
We
natural.
understand
Glad
that,
we're in
but-
agreement on that.
Yeah.
But we understand that, but, you know, properties change hands, things happen. and-
I think that's a wonderful solution. I would be more than happy to put that in the deed.
Well, town council would have to review that.
You can simplify it too, and just say, you know, each of the lots in the subdivision would be restricted to a single access driveway. And
That would be easy.
that would be easy.
Yeah,
That's what I
You
get,
have to wait for town
that's why you
council.
make these big
No,
lots.
no,
that's why I'm here.
No, I like your previous, I want it very, very clear that there's no paved link between that new driveway and the existing road. Or if in the future,
That connection's
that
made, the other one
connection
is.
is made, then
The
the
other one
other
gets paid.
connection gets excised. I mean, I want that very clear.
Okay.
So I don't want it to be general blanket language that
All
people
right, you
can
want it specific to
interpret
this.
later.
Yeah, okay.
But the single access driveway comment, at present, 201 and 205 are shared driveway.
Right, but it only has single access to Newton Street.
Right.
So it could be argued, if you were an attorney, that it's, even if there were a loop there, it would still only have single access to Newton Street, because it'd have to go down the stub of the other street to get to Newton, so.
That's why I became an engineer.
No,
Right, but that's a good point.
Yeah, I understood.
Okay, so one more thing I just want to throw out there, and just to make sure it doesn't make sense, but if we do what you say you're going to do with the structural soil and the vegetated surface and all that, does it make any sense to also do the fire hydrant underneath that now? I mean, that's like
That would be an
ultra redundancy.
Yeah, that would be a significant cost, and it would also not look really good on the corner
Well,
of the
you
driveway,
could-
so.
If cost aside, you could run the main without actually putting the hydrant in.
That's,
Since you're already.
that's money though. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
I know, I just
again,
wanted to
the
throw
fi-
it out there.
The fire department's requirement was either or. So, I was standing up for either or before, so I'm not gonna back up and say both now,
Mhm.
personally.
Right. So let's do either or, and
Okay.
just. Also, I thought it was interesting, like Ken stated, that, you know, over the course of time, this area would naturalize.
You can't do that.
And,
If it's an access that has to be.
but does it have to, what does the width have to be? They're not bringing trucks down there.
Well, what is the width?
They
Well,
could.
maybe we can talk about that in more detail. What width are we talking?
Well,
It could be far more path-like.
I mean,
To
the
drag a hose
width, you know, if you're trying to get somebody to drive through a reconstructed cart path and not go off it into soil that's not gonna support the weight of, whether it's a landscape truck full of compost or mulch or topsoil, or a fire truck, to make it 12 or 14 feet wide, probably, when this material is not expensive, this is not the plastic grid, it's the mixed material, we can put something in here that varies in width so that, you know, turns, trucks gravitate to the outside of curves. We can do that so it joins at both ends and gives ourselves some leeway. This is a material that I'm actually using on other projects to use as support on residential projects for shoulders, because nobody can stay on a road. I mean, everybody gets deliveries from UPS trucks and landscape guys come and go, and you can't stay on the road. 12, 14, I don't care what it is, you're gonna go off the road. So this is a very inexpensive way to not have to put cobblestones down or the cells, which.
No, we understand the
Yeah,
principle.
right.
So what is the width of that?
Well, at the narrowest, it's probably 12, and the widest is probably 18. So we give ourselves some leeway. So if they're plowing it and they're not exactly in the same spot all the time, we're safe, because this material has the ability to support an H20 loading, whether it's frozen or not.
Where's it 18? I don't know why it would have to be 18. I mean, that's a 2-lane road.
I think I think Paul was just trying to make it nonlinear, put some
Yeah.
curves in it so it doesn't look like a,
Yeah, because that's going to be the limit of the shortgrass meadow. We're going to, that's a good way to sort of limit the hydroseeding and the maintenance of that to that material, and then we're going to forest soils and decomposed wood chip bark material and beyond that.
But.
Can you
it's-
get that same effect with not so wide, maybe to 16?
yeah, you could.
Just like
yeah.
18. I understand your point of doing that, because
And the other thing is,
More
I mean,
naturalistic.
if it has to, you know, here's the reason why I thought the hydrant was such a good idea. In this case, we can't just let the material grow up. Once we know that has to be maintained, we have to have a condition that a certain width of that has to, you can't let things grow up in it.
Right.
So,
But the canopy will grow over the top of it.
yeah, but it's gonna, I mean, I'm just not sure, it's gonna look so bizarre in the landscape.
We have shortgrass meadow at the edge of the current lawn going into plant beds right now through much of the property. And it's a really soft, fuzzy edge. It's not the spaded edge with the mulch going right there. It's not ground cover right there. It's actually a drop seed ornamental grass. So there's a very fuzzy edge that's very much like a shortgrass meadow, in addition to areas on
But
the.
you're gonna have to mow it.
You mow it a couple times a year higher. That's what you do.
So what are you mowing? You know, are you mowing?
You're gonna mow the intended path, yes, exactly.
So it's,
Isn't that only a couple times a year?
Yeah, that's all it is, yeah.
yeah, I know, but it's just gonna, it's gonna look so weird.
How will the fire department know where to drive the truck? Are you gonna have to put markers?
We might put markers up. We might put markers up
Markers.
when we're plowing.
Nope. Yeah,
It's
just
just
in the
so
winter.
Just in the wintertime,
for
yeah,
something that
in the
will never be
summertime.
used. Never.
But in the summer, how will they know? Just because it's
That's what I
mowed?
thought the hydrant was.
Yeah, I mean, once the
Yeah.
landscape crew comes, the same crew all the time, so they start to set a mowing pattern up, and they're only gonna do it midsummer and then the fall, so.
Just- It's so,
It will look like an old cart path.
no,
Yeah.
well, I don't think so.
Well, think about over on, by the big barn on Church. the landscape does 4-foot wide
Yeah.
mows in among there. I mean, there are
Yeah.
cart paths around, and you,
But they're not 16 feet wide.
but this isn't 16 feet wide straight,
But it's, parts of it are 16 feet wide.
and then it narrows.
It's not a cart path. Cart paths aren't that
Like,
wide.
yeah, yeah.
Well, they'll vary.
It'll vary.
Depending on
Eight,
where the
nine.
trees are, that they go through.
Kim,
Yeah.
you know, weigh it in.
Save us.
I mean, I think, and I said this in the email, the task was to, you know, soften this from looking like a landing strip, and I think they've done that. When you arrive at this from any angle, it's not gonna look like a straight shot into the house. As you drive down that private road, it's gonna be closed off in any one direction because of the arrangement of the trees. So I don't think it's gonna be as harsh as what you think it's gonna be.
Yeah. What are the trees that are being proposed?
We're going to a native to reinforce the forest reintroduction, so we've got red oak, we've got white pine, and we've got a swamp white oak. And if you can follow my finger, that's the edge of the current pavement. So we're planting one on the edge, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the current asphalt area.
What are the sizes?
On the pines, those are 10 to 12s, and the oaks are 3.5 to 4s.
3 to what, caliber?
Caliber.
So we're talking about maybe 14 feet high max, right?
Can you uncover the audio?
Oh,
Thanks.
We're talking
sorry.
about 14-foot high max trees.
On the pines, the oak should be taller at 3.5 to 4.
16s.
Yeah, good, at least that, yeah.
It's, Kim, what do you think? They seems kind of small to me.
Well, it's in and among an existing canopy there, so I was actually okay with the sizes. I think the evergreens a couple of them could bump up in size. but
Get some
the-
variation in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what happens? He has this sketched out as there's a green ribbon. Is that just a cutoff? In other words, it's one thing in the white areas and then something different in the green swath? Is that what's going on?
No, I mean, what I'm understanding is that would be seeded, but again, there would be a fuzzy edge until it kind of peters into the natural leaf litter that you see under the existing woods. So it's sort of like what you would see if you were taking a hike in the woods and you come across a clearing, and then that edge is never really a hard edge. It kind of undulates in and out based on sunlight, and resources. So I don't ever see it as being, a crisp, clean edge. It's gonna mimic sort of the clearing or cart path through the woods. That's my understanding. of it.
That's true. The crispest day is going to be the day after the hydroseedal leaves, and after that, it's going to adapt to the light and resources as you described, and it's going to become a very fuzzy edge.
Why does it have to be 16 feet wide, Kim?
Why? I'm not looking at this from the course of like the fiber access that I'm leaving up to the engineers. I was looking at this from, does this look like a straight in runway, or does this have curved edges to it? To me, this has curved edges to it.
I think,
The narrowing up is a different thing altogether.
I think the 16 feet really only occurs where he has it kind of bellied out here
Yeah.
and there. I mean, I think
Yeah.
you can pull those bellies in.
Yeah, to me, it would be best if you pulled them in as far as you could. Maybe it's,
Well, if this is reserved access for fire and they're making the curve, they're gonna need more swing for the curve. If it was straight, then you could make it just as narrow as the wheels, but
well, there's a straight section there that looks like it's all 16 feet.
Well, you can narrow it through here,
Yeah.
and probably keep the two bellies here
Yeah,
where the machine's
That's what I would
going.
do.
You can make it look a little
Yeah.
more naturalistic.
and then the, what's the reason for the bell at the end?
Right here?
Yeah,
Well, that's because if a fire truck is gonna use this and they wanna turn that way, they would have support for their weight going that way as well as that way.
why would they want to go that way?
Well,
Well,
in
they
an
were
emergency
sure.
situation, I mean, the situation may not be right at this house. It could be along the road. It could be at the, future structure still to be designed.
For them to go back into service, or to change, or to go to another, call or something.
Or an
Have
arborist
that
truck, a
flexibility.
tree truck going in there to do some trimming for some dead limbs, and we're bringing an aerial lift in there. To be able to drive through there with not having to worry about, it's gotta be frozen before I come onto the site, is a slight benefit to be able to manage that as this new vegetation is growing up.
I'm not too worried about this. I think it's going in the right direction.
More on the sidewalks. Okay. Kim, I'm gonna trust you on this.
Okay,
I have real reservations. I mean, I've done a lot of site planning in the last 40 years, and I've gotta tell you, this one gives me real reservations. But I'll trust you, okay?
all right.
And Al, your main reservations are that we'll see.
It'll
an
look
applicant-
artificial. It'll just look horribly
Our
artificial.
goal is to make it look naturalistic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And anything that leads toward making it more naturalistic is better. Anything that's more constructive, I'm assuming.
Right.
They've
It
done,
does all
they've done
look-
great things in the curve. I think that certainly adds a
Yeah.
great deal. It eliminates a lot of the straight shots in
Right.
terms of the visual effect.
So it's gonna look a little artificial, at least the first year or two even.
It's got to grow
But
in.
it's
It's
gonna,
got to grow in.
it's gonna go in, leaves are
Yeah.
gonna fall on it, it's
Right.
gonna blend in.
Right.
It may take a season or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're not planning on having this be maintenance trucks, or as you said, a landscaper truck with a bell?
No, if a guy's got to come in with a tree truck to do some tree work, he can access that. But that's a limited basis, probably every couple of years, maybe 3 years. This forest
Oh,
area.
you mean
is-
to just access trees
Yeah,
there?
because the
Oh,
trees
okay.
to either side
Not
of this
just
are
coming in
all-
with loads
No,
and
no,
stuff.
no, 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 no.
So this will
No.
not be traveled
No.
on, except when they plow it. And that's an issue.
But I think it doesn't have to be plowed, it can be maintained by other means and still keep the snow clear.
I'll let you fight with the fire department about that.
Just don't say.
All right, somebody's gonna have to write the language on the deed restriction.
Okay, between Eric, myself, and Betsy, we can draft it.
And then that's gonna have to be cleared by town council.
That stuff that you're using.
It's called fiber swell.
Put John Leaf to work.
It's
then-
distributed by Reed Custom Soils.
RED or ED?
I think it's RED in their Massachusetts.
This will come very handy for a very large project towns. And it's less expensive than the town.
Oh, yeah,
So-
it's only 60 cents a square foot.
Everybody's opinion.
I like the idea of having a restriction that's both in perpetuity, not be able to ever be a connected full roadway. Okay, that's the key thing. And I trust Kim, and I honestly think it may be not as hard. I give you a real rube on this, but I don't think it'll be as bad as you are frightened of.
Okay.
I can,
Let me just say, Eric and my wife and I had also walked it, and what Eric was talking about also over here,
We have your
with the
name
thin
for the-
curves, with the evergreens
signing.
trees there.
Could
Oh,
you-
I'm sorry.
Yeah, For the record, we just.
For the
say
record,
your
Derek
name and
Polanski,
address.
185 Newton Street.
Okay.
could you repeat what you just said, because there was too much.
Interrupted.
Okay, shall I start? Again, Derek Polanski, 185 Newton Street. Eric and my wife Kathy and I walked this. We're totally happy with this arrangement. In fact, it would be nice. And what we talked about were the evergreens and plantings over here, so that as the cars come up here, it would not shield us in that direction.
Yeah. Well, that change was already an improvement.
And did you sign in too? by the
Yeah.
way?
Steve, you're,
So, I mean, I think it's a good solution, I can live with it, and I think the fact that that road can never be built is key, and how it's maintained is key, and how it's designed from the start is key. If it were up to me, my first choice would still be to do the hydrant and not do that road.
right.
So for me, this is second choice, but I can live with it.
How do you feel, David?
I like it. I think it's fine. I think it'll be fine. I think putting a hydrant in, fire hydrant in would give me a whole bunch of disruption getting it in, and a lot of expense for something that hopefully may never be used. So I think this is actually a better solution.
I have trouble visualizing what it would look like in effect, but I mean, it seems like it's been some delicate negotiation, and I think we've arrived at, an understanding.
I've got serious doubts, but I'll go along with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It better work. All right. So does somebody want to make a motion?
So do we want to wait for a decision before we do a motion? So do we want to continue it to the 6th?
Sure. We'll continue to the 6th.
So the decision will be.
No, we'll just continue. So who's producing the language?
John Leith, Eric's attorney, will work with Betsy. You'll forward something to Betsy that you can run by town council.
You'll see it before.
I'll speak with John Leith and tell him what we want to accomplish.
We need it by May the 1st.
You'll have.
Yeah.
Still think you'd be better off doing the hydrant.
I really appreciate your accommodating, I really do. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll take these out so you can actually staying, but
Oh, you are?
but you can keep those up in the hallway.
Okay.
So. Here.
They just got the decision on what.
Are we looking at that tonight, by the way? What is it?
That's okay. Stay for that. Just like the middle one's great.
But, so.
So I just want to.
And I apologize.
Oh, yeah.
Do
And you can't appreciate anything.
Unless you're Kim, thanks. You better be right.
She's always right. Can you sign off?
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute, Kim.
Wait.
Cap, we may need some, have you seen the Case Estates master plan?
I haven't looked at it.
Have you gotten a copy of it?
I've gotten a copy of it, I haven't read through it yet.
Okay, because we're gonna be taking a look at that later on tonight.
Okay.
Was it now?
Oh, no, Meadowbrook.
Meadowbrook. So, I think what we're gonna ask for is a site walk, okay, for that. So it would be helpful for you to just take a look at it when you have a chance. So it could be geared up for the site walk. Good. In that case, can we say
Okay,
bye to her?
bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.